This is the new 2024 Chevy Blazer EV, and it's a totally electric, totally new version of the Chevy Blazer. That's good news because the current Blazer is a little bit dull, but this is anything but boring. And today I'm going to show you all the quirks and features of the new Blazer EV. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my enthusiast car auction website for cool cars from the modern era, the 1980s and up. We've had some fantastic sales recently on Cars and Bids, including this Sprinter van, which sold for just under $70,000, this wonderful E46 BMW M3, which brought just under $30,000, and this amazing Smart Crossblade, which sold for $55,000. An absolutely ridiculous car. We love stuff like that on Cars and Bids. If you're looking to buy or sell an enthusiast car from the modern era, Cars and Bids is the place to do it. With daily auctions and great selection, check it out at carsandbids.com. All right, time for the quirks and features of the Chevy Blazer EV. But first, I want to give a little overview of exactly what this vehicle is. And specifically, I want to highlight something very important. This is not just a regular Chevy Blazer with an electric powertrain, electric motors, a battery, that kind of thing. Completely different vehicle from the standard Chevy Blazer that we have now. On the outside, you can see that this has some styling cues that are shared with the current Chevy Blazer, and this is a crossover, similar size to the current Chevy Blazer, so it also shares that, but this is a completely different, totally new vehicle that really doesn't actually share any components with the new Blazer except for its name. Now that's true right down to the platform that this car rides on. The new Blazer EV shares its platform with the Cadillac Lyriq, which is Cadillac's electric mid-size luxury crossover. I've already reviewed that. This car rides on that platform, and it kind of stretches the Blazer styling a little bit to fit to that platform, and so it's noticeably different from a standard Blazer when you look at it from the outside. Now, in terms of the platform, not only does the Blazer EV share it with the Cadillac Lyriq, but also with the new Chevy Equinox EV and virtually all other electric General Motors vehicles, and interestingly, the Honda Prologue, which is this. It's Honda's upcoming electric vehicle. Apparently, rather than develop their own architecture, Honda decided to borrow from General Motors, who was already doing the development, and so this will ride on the same platform as a Honda, which seems odd, but is indeed true. And by the way, one little quirk that Chevrolet told me about vehicles that ride on this platform, they all have 6 lug wheels. As you can see, wheels have 6 lug nuts, which is unusual for most passenger cars. Usually it's 5 or sometimes even 4, but GM vehicles on this architecture have 6, including the upcoming Honda Prologue, which is one way you can spot that it uses this platform. But anyway, back to the Blazer EV and moving on to pricing and market position. Now, like I said, this is a crossover, as you can see, and it's a mid-size crossover, a little bit longer than a Ford Mustang Mach-E or a Tesla Model Y, but sort of competing in that space. And that's especially true when you consider pricing. Blazer EV will start around $45,000 with shipping for a base model, although this one, the high-performance Blazer EV SS, starts around $66,000, but it comes with a lot more performance. Specifically, the Blazer EV SS will have around 560 horsepower and around 650 pound-feet of torque. Absolutely monstrous numbers, as you can imagine, which is fitting because this is Chevy's first ever EV to use the SS designation. That's a very historical, special model name they've only saved for high-performance vehicles, and given the power numbers on this, I suspect it qualifies. Now, interestingly, this is also the very first Blazer model to ever use the SS designation. We all remember the Trailblazer SS in the mid-2000s, but that wasn't technically a Blazer. Otherwise, the Chevy Blazer has never been an SS until now. And speaking of trim levels for the Blazer EV, here's something rather interesting. They're going to offer this in 3 versions for regular consumers like you and me. Base model is called the LT, or you can step up to the RS, or you can step up to the high-performance model, the SS, like I just mentioned, which is what this Blazer EV is. There will also be a fourth version, not available to regular people, which is a police pursuit model of the new Blazer. I bring that up because there's something interesting with this vehicle and drivetrain. Base models will only offer front-wheel drive. The SS, the high-performance version, this one will only offer all-wheel drive, and other trim levels will offer kind of a choice between the two, front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, depending on what you want. Except the police model will offer either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, meaning that the new Blazer EV will be available in front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive. All three available, which is crazy. It's not something that you could really even conceptualize a car offering in the days before electric vehicles. But since this car is mostly just about motors and batteries, it's actually pretty easy to offer front, all, or rear, and this does. And next up, moving on to some important numbers. Like I said, this is the SS high-performance version, about 560 horsepower, 650 pound-feet, and Chevrolet says 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, which is a crazy number, especially for a Chevy Blazer. It doesn't seem to make sense in your mind, but that is the truth. Now, that acceleration figure is achieved when you are in the wide open Watts drive mode, also known as WOW, wide open Watts. Sounds a little cheesy, but that's what they've done. And although Chevy hasn't announced specifics of how that drive mode is going to work, apparently it's going to optimize the vehicle for maximum acceleration prowess and do 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. Now, as for range, Chevy says the top range version of this car, which will actually be the RS model, will get about 320 miles of range, whereas the high-performance SS will be about 290. Charge times are fast. If you can find a charger capable of it, the Blazer EV can add around 78 miles of charge in 10 minutes, which is obviously a lot in a relatively short amount of time, so this is fast charging capable. Now, as for the driving experience, well, I can't quite get behind the wheel yet. This is a very, very pre-production model with basically nothing really functional, so I can't drive it, but the Blazer EV is rolling out pretty soon. Chevy says sometime 2023, likely summer of 23, so it's not really that far off. Now, all models won't debut at the very initial launch, but they should trickle out over the next few months, and the whole model range will be on sale by early 24. But anyway, onto the quirks and features of the Blazer EV, and let's talk through one of its more important features, which is how it looks on the outside, which is frankly pretty sleek and attractive. The Cadillac Lyriq has been a little polarizing. Some people like it, some people don't, but the Blazer EV, I think, has a more mainstream appeal, a nice, genuinely attractive vehicle that I don't think people are going to find a lot of fault in. And it really does look different from the standard Blazer. Like I said, some styling cues are shared, but when you actually look at it, you can see a lot of changes. The most noticeable is the wheelbase is a lot different, a lot longer than the standard Blazer, which is allowed with electric vehicle architecture. You don't have a giant engine in the front that you have to push the wheels back for, so you can pull them out and create more space for passenger room. Basically, every EV manufacturer is taking advantage of that, and that's true here too, and an immediate giveaway that you're not just looking at a standard gas-powered Blazer. Now, another difference between the Blazer EV and the regular Blazer is on the front fender here, you have this indentation that carries on into the door. I guess it's supposed to look sporty and muscular and cool, and it certainly is a distinctive feature compared to the normal model. The cool thing is, over on the driver's side, this indentation is actually the charge port door. As you can see, here it is open. It's pretty well hidden. One of the most disguised charge port doors I've ever seen. You wouldn't really know it's there, but in fact it is. Now, as for notable styling touches on this high-performance SS model, there are a few important ones. The rear bumper is one. It's large and low, and it almost looks like a sports car rear diffuser, which gives it kind of a sporty, cool look. Same deal with the rear spoiler. You can see it above the rear glass, and again, gives it like a sporty, special look to emphasize this car's performance. In front, you have a large grille opening. The Blazer's design has always been meant to kind of mimic that of the Camaro, and you have that here as well. Sporty, exciting performance-y. Also worth pointing out, if you're still having trouble telling the difference between a Blazer EV and a regular Blazer, you can always check the badge. The Blazer EV's badge, the E in Blazer, is these 3 blue horizontal lines, as you can see. Chevy has done the same thing in the Silverado EV. The E in Silverado is 3 blue horizontal lines. It's also true of the Equinox EV, and you can see it here. Apparently these 3 blue lines as an E is going to be like a distinguishing feature on the badges of electric Chevy models. So I asked them, well, what happens if you have a car that doesn't have an E in its name? How will you have the 3 blue lines? They told me it hasn't happened yet, it hasn't become a problem yet, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Indeed. So those are the 3 blue lines. But anyway, next we climb inside the Blazer EV, and when you get in here, you will notice some familiar touches from the standard Blazer, including these circular climate vents. This is a hallmark of the Camaro that was brought into the Blazer, and now it's here in the Blazer EV. Again, nothing is really shared with the regular Blazer in the Blazer EV, but you do have that sort of similarity in design with these circular climate vents. More obvious in this interior, you notice right when you sit down, this massive center screen. You actually have 2 screens in here, a big gauge cluster screen and then this large center screen that's tilted a little bit towards the driver. Now, because this is such a pre-production vehicle, I can't show you like the ins and outs of this screen. It doesn't actually work. It's sort of playing this animation on a loop, as you can see, but this center screen is very promising. Super high resolution, obviously full color, and just massive. General Motors has a fantastic infotainment system, and I think that brought to a screen this size is going to be great to use, and I'm excited to check it out. But for now, you can see sort of a general preview of this screen. Now, interestingly, this screen is standard in all Blazer EV models, not just in the top-end SS version like this. You get this screen in all Blazer EVs regardless of trim level, which is really cool. Fantastically large screen, and I'm excited to play with it and find its interesting quirks and features as this car gets closer to production. Now, a couple of things worth paying attention to with this screen. For one, I love the floating volume dial. This is still a physical dial that you twist with your hands, so you don't have to go into the screen to adjust the volume, but it's mounted on the screen, and it's kind of a cool look. I also like the fact that the climate controls are separated from the screen, as you can see below it, using physical switches and dials instead of integrated into the screen. Looks like some climate things are in the screen, like your heated seats, but most climate stuff you can do without going into a menu, which is nice. It always annoys people when climate controls are in the screen. Now, a couple of other interesting items worth noting up front here. For one thing, the gear selector is this stalk coming off the steering column. Looks very unassuming and simple, just almost like a windshield wiper or turn signal stalk, but that is in fact your gear selector. Now, over on the other side, I noticed the turn signal stalk also has all the wiper controls, but not the headlight controls. And I look further over to the left and I don't see the headlight controls over there either. I suspect that's because the headlight controls are integrated into the screen. You can actually see, even in the demo mode, the headlight controls showing up on the screen. So I guess that's where they're going to be. No physical controls for the headlight, but that makes sense. These cars will have automatic headlights. Most people aren't using those controls that often anyway. Now, also worth pointing out, in the vicinity of all that other stuff, the new Blazer EV will offer Super Cruise, which is General Motors' absolutely fantastic driver assist adaptive cruise control technology. It steers, it brakes, it even changes lanes for you, and it's going to be available in the Blazer EV. In this interior, you can see the top of the steering wheel has the little screen for the Super Cruise lighting functions, and the top of the steering column, this is where the Super Cruise camera and sensor will be, so this car will offer it. Super Cruise standard in the Blazer EV SS, if you get this version, and I presume it's going to be available in lesser models as well. But cool to see that feature trickle down to the Blazer. And finally, we move on to the backseat of the new Blazer EV, which is impressively roomy, quite a bit larger than what you get in the regular Blazer, which really feels like a compact crossover when you're in the back. It's kind of claustrophobically low, there's not a lot of legroom. This is totally different. Huge rear seat space for legs, knees, and headroom, a lot of space in the back of the new Blazer EV. And the reason for that is, like I said before, the wheelbase. The wheelbase is stretched because it's an electric car and they don't have the typical constraints that a gas-powered car has, and that allows them to offer more space in the passenger compartment, which translates to more rear seat space. Makes this a pretty good family car, actually, since there's so much space in back. A couple of cool features in this particular Blazer EV SS. One is the panoramic roof, this giant glass panel covering basically the entire interior. It's actually two panels and one of them does open, but even in the closed state, you get a look out and see the entire world around you, which is neat. Also in back, as you can see, two USB-C ports mounted in the middle for charging devices, which is obviously always helpful, adds a little convenience back here. Now, as for the cargo area, well, you can see it here. Nothing particularly exciting or different or unusual in this cargo area, just a normal mid-sized crossover cargo area sized about how you might expect for a mid-sized crossover cargo area. Now, you might be wondering about the front cargo area, and in this particular pre-production Blazer EV, the front doesn't open up. But it's worth pointing out that I've been in the Cadillac Lyriq, which, like I said, this is based on. The front does open up in the Lyriq, but it still isn't a cargo area. Now, I've mentioned before that automakers have told me most people don't actually use the front cargo areas that some EVs offer. So it's not that big of a deal, but still probably won't be a cargo area here, just like it isn't in the Lyriq either. Instead, you just have your normal cargo places. And so that's the new 2024 Chevy Blazer EV. Between this and the Hummer EV and the Chevy Silverado EV, General Motors is injecting a lot of excitement into its lineup in the form of electric vehicles, and I'm thrilled, and I can't wait to drive the new Blazer EV before it goes on sale next year, which is a big deal because it's been a long time since I've been excited about a new Chevy Blazer.